Good afternoon to you as well. I hope that everything is all right at your end.
All's well. Thank you so much for asking. Hope all's well at your end as well.
Yeah,
That is
and
great. So
yeah,
from last session to now, something has changed or something you've realized or something you would like to share?
something has changed. Nothing pretty much. I guess I watched couple of films. That's it. I guess nothing uh, that much exceptional or extraordinary that I can share with you.
All
Uh,
right. Right.
Few things, I guess, in terms of English. Yeah, like I told you that time that when it comes to English, I never like to rest on my laurels. So yeah, I learned few things about
All
that.
right.
Yeah,
That is interesting. That is very interesting.
yeah.
Uh, so did you, I remember you telling me you were into reading, I think.
I was into reading.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you reading any new book or are you
No,
still reading
I
the
just
same?
like to reread the same book over and over again until it gets registered in my mind, or I'm able to completely digest it. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to read. Like as of now, I'm currently reading, I guess, the Focus on What Matters. It's a philosophy, the Stoicism. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm reading as of now.
But do you think that rereading the same book will tell you new things when you read it again? Or is it that just you are still focusing and emphasizing on the things that you've already read?
Uh, yeah, I definitely can tell you the different things, and sometimes you can read between the lines also. Because like I don't read to tell people that I read 10 or 15 books in 1 month or like that. I read it just for the sake of learning. So I tend to reread the book until and unless I get it fully digested, and then I jump onto next book. But still, again, after completing the second book, I go back to first book because like my mind is like a sieve. So sometimes I forget. I forget what I have
Uh,
learned. I have to make sure that it until again I have to follow those things because books are supposed to be followed. Like if you don't execute those things in your real life, it's gonna be futile. So yeah, that's what I try to do.
all right. But do you think reading books over and over again is very similar to like watching a movie a couple of times? Do you think that's the same thing?
No, not at all. It's completely apples and oranges. When it comes to movies, it's for the sake of entertainment. But when it comes to books, it's for education purpose, for knowledge gaining, and sometimes if I talk about Bhagavad Gita, it's not like you read it and then you stop doing it. You can reread it again. It's kind of the book talks to you. So when you
Mm.
feel down in the dumps or you feel like life has been too hard for so far, you can take the aid of the books.
Makes sense, makes sense. But there are movies which are based on like very important social issues. Do
Yeah,
you they also make an impact in watching them over and over again, or at least making them and spreading them out to public does play a very important role to enlighten and enrich people about certain topics, especially based topics, which help
definitely.
break the stereotype. But do
Yeah.
you those kind of things also help in the longer run?
Yeah, completely. In the light of what you are saying, I missed out. Like, it slipped my mind. Sometimes I rewatch some films that are motivational. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really into fitness thing, so I like to watch classic Sylvester Stallone films like Rocky, Rambo. So
Yes.
whenever I feel like I don't want to do the workout, if I had watched the film prior, like the previous day, I would have those things in my mind, and it would boost me to do those things. So yeah, movie can be like inspiring. It depends on the movie, I guess.
All right. So how would you motivate somebody if somebody, through the YouTube platform or any other platform approaches you and they ask they want to get into reading, but they are not able to get into the process of reading? How will you kind of guide them through the process?
Look, now like when it comes to reading, a lot of people they feel like it's for the nerds, it's for old school people. So there's no way. I don't personally feel like you can motivate someone to read. It has to come intuitively. Intuition has to be there,
Mhm.
because no one told me that you have to read books. It
Mhm.
happened, like I got this epiphany that I have to, be a different person. I have to work on my personality development. So it happened. We all know that, like from childhood, our teachers tell us that read books and all, but we take it for granted. We don't do it. So
Absolutely.
you cannot convince anyone, I guess. For as far as like books are concerned, I can not say that you can convince anyone to read.
No, but the deal is that if the student or the person wants to do it, but they don't know how to go about it, because sometimes, you walk into a bookstore and you see really hefty books, but
Yeah,
you do want to read, but you don't know where to start from, what kind of content to explore in the very beginning. Because if you don't have that innate thing, or you don't have the environment which nurtures you into reading, how do you create that? How would you guide somebody to, start off with a point where, let's see, they are interested in reading, but how would you suggest them to go about it?
that's a nice question. Yeah, when it comes to recommendation, I can do that. Like,
Yes.
yeah, for beginners, I often tell my students who come to me and ask me that what kind of books should we read, which is easy to understand. So in that case, I would say that go with Robin Sharma's book. I would often give them the that title, "Who Will Cry When I Die." So this
Yes.
kind of books they can start with. Eventually, they can move on to fiction or non-fiction book. But yeah, for beginners, I would recommend to read Robin Sharma's book. So that's my yeah recommendation.
All right, that's wonderful. Any book that you remember when you started, the process of reading, and something which left a really big impact on you?
Yeah, like any other people, I started with Robin Sharma's book. Then I read The Power of Positive Thinking. Then I read Dalai Lama's book, The Art of Happiness. Then Nick Vujicic, he's a great I guess motivational speaker. He has
Mhm.
no arms and no legs. You might have seen him. So I read
Yes.
his biography as well. And then eventually I got into fictional books. I started reading Agatha Christie, then John Grisham, then Nicholas Sparks. So these were some really top-notch and renowned writers.
All right. So they've kind of left an impact on you over the
Yeah,
years.
yeah, definitely.
All right. And what are your thoughts on the fact that, there are certain frequencies, or like music? Let's talk
Mhm.
about music that kind of are very therapeutic in nature. Even if you've had a busy day, or any sort of music would help you relax and unwind for the day, which is also important. But then there are also scientific facts which are proving that, reading a book gives you more comfort in comparison to just listening to music. So how would you put a comparison to these two?
Look, that I'm kind of naive about whether books are better than listening to music, but yeah, I tend to do both of those things. And there is a scientific fact also that there are some chemicals inside our brain which
Mhm.
only gets activated when you read books. So that thing is true. And yeah, music also, I guess it's equally good enough. Even I tend to take the resort of music when I feel like, kind of like again down in the dumps or a little bit, drained at the end of the day. I listen to devotional songs sometimes. Sometimes I listen to Bollywood songs. Yeah, so it
It
depends.
absolutely depends on the mood and the requirement of the hour, that you
Yeah,
kind of vary between all of these.
yeah,
All right, makes sense, makes sense. That's great.
yeah.
So, but do you also believe in kind of how would you say that, especially a student, a young student, or even a person who works but
Hmm.
has multiple hobbies, and, is delving into a side business or something like that, and they really have this time constraint, but they also would like to understand how to unwind, but intellectually, because they don't want to do something which is not mindful, to, kind of deviate themselves from the focus and the discipline they've built with such hard work. How would you suggest somebody to do that? Like to unwind, but with something intellectual, which is intellectually stimulating basically, but does not take a lot of effort as well.
Look, in today's world, it's not like everyone is like busy 24 hours into 7. People
Mhm.
often tend to doom scroll, whether you are CEO
Absolutely.
of a company, or whether simply you are like a merchant or something. So during that time, if you want to do something productive, you can do it. You can pick up a book. You can watch something meaningful like podcast or something. I
Ab-
often listen to Mel Robbins podcast, and
mhm.
yeah, from like it has to be with the mindset, you know. On
Absolutely.
Sunday also, I'm doing this thing because I'm like, for me, I'm not sure whether I told you that or not. If I get a chance to be in environment of English, I would be like to do that till the cows come home, 24 hours into 7.
Absolutely.
So I booked multiple sessions today, and I thought that although it's Sunday, I want to make sure that my practice keeps on going, and I don't want to take a break from it. So it really depends on the mindset.
Absolutely. That does depend on the mindset. That absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So, since you said you booked multiple sessions today, right?
Hmm.
So, what is your goal through these sessions, all these multiple sessions? Do you think that you learn something different from every individual that you come across?
In terms of English, I don't want to sound pompous, but I don't learn anything in terms of English, but it helps me immensely when it comes to the practice part, because
Mhm.
usually teach to students, I teach students, so I don't get the chance to, practice them with them, or uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, to who is equally good enough at English like me. So for the sake of practicing, it helps me a lot.
All right.
And sometimes I do learn. Yeah, sometimes I do learn from like from I guess a few of the words that I learned for was novice. Recently, I learned from one of the Clapingo tutors. She
All
used
right.
this word novice. So that I added in my active vocabulary nowadays, rather than saying I used to go with knife, or I used to go with rookie. But novice is a good word. So
Yes, that's a little more professional word that you can
yeah,
use. It's a typical English word that can be used in a,
definitely,
it can be used
definitely.
in multiple ways in simple
Yeah.
terms. Yes,
And
yes.
you also used a term that I was kind of again naive about, coercion, COER.
Coercion, yes,
Yeah.
coercion.
So that I try to learn, and I try to, after the end of the conversation, once I get the video, I try to figure out how to use that word. So yeah, I do it technically and strategically.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful actually, because a lot of people would, when you Google basic suggestions, you come across you should listen to podcasts, you should watch
Yeah.
movies. See, this does help. I am not saying this does not help. But the point is, you are trying to learn to speak a language. You are not trying to learn the language or the grammar
Mhm.
part of the language. So until and unless you pause the podcast or the movie or the song and you've learned something, you Google it or you ask somebody, you get an idea. Because in English, one word can be used in multiple ways. For example, novice. You can
Yeah.
draft it in so many ways with different sentences until and unless you realize and you start using it in different ways or you link it to something basic that you use frequently and you
Mm.
start replacing it, it is pointless because then the pronunciation, all of this, I will say listening is important, but listening kind of takes the second step in
Yeah.
comparison to when you're trying to learn to speak a language. So if you've heard something, I would recommend talking about it more, just like exactly what you're doing. So I think with this platform, if no matter how many people are watching it, I think they'll be able to kind of realize this factor that what they're doing is fine. Sometimes when you read a book or you read the newspaper, you come across many words or sentences or phrases or anything on the grammar part. You make a note of it, but the problem is making a note of it, you barely go back to it. Every day
True.
you're making a note of it, but you're not using it on a daily basis. You have a bundle of notes which are just lying in the corner of your study
Yeah.
table, but you don't really look into it. And
True.
the problem is not that you're not learning, but you will not use it frequently. One
Definitely.
day you will read something and realize, oh, I had read it way back. I know this word, but I don't know what this means. And
Yeah.
suddenly you will not know how to use it. So until you kind of start speaking, exploring the language, because you cannot learn a language. Language is
True.
infinite. You only
Yeah.
can keep on improving, 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 and learning through the
Definitely.
same process. Even at this stage in my life, I might not know all the words. some student might come up, oh, what does this mean? And suddenly I realize, oh, let's Google and we'll realize what this is. And
Yeah.
then I'll also learn a new word, and he'll or she will also learn a new word, and I'll tell 10 others. So this is exactly how I can practice, and probably they will tell their friends about this. And the cycle goes on. But until and unless you put an active effort into trying to speak the language, there is no way on earth that you learn to speak any language, not just English, any
Mm.
language, whether it be any Indian local language, or you try talking about Spanish, French, Italian, any of these. All of these vary, and grammar in every language is different. So I personally recommend not translating certain languages, because especially when we talk about languages in India, all across India, their grammar portion might be very different from what English or any other language grammar is. So
Mm.
I personally don't recommend, until you reach that level where you are able to accurately convert your local language into English, you start thinking in English and you start conversing in English. So that is one very, very important point that I follow by, or I help anybody, irrespective if the person is a beginner or intermediate or advanced, in terms of grammar or spoken English. Although I don't really support the idea of, categorizing stages of in a learning a language, because language is infinite. How do you say somebody is an advanced or an intermediate in terms of learning a language? But yes, I can say in terms of grammar, if you just started learning a language, in that category you can categorize, because there are certain topics you start with it. There are certain people from across India where, English or any other language has not been the primary language. So even if at any stage in life they are starting with even alphabets, that's absolutely fine. But I would also recommend them not kind of, pushing themselves too hard if they're watching a podcast or a celebrity speak with a certain accent or fluency. Comparison is a very
Yeah, it's a thief
negative
of joy.
thing to do. Yes, because they start comparing as to when will I start speaking like this, and then they see these false promises. Oh, you can do it in 6 months and 10 months
Yeah,
and 12 months. See, this is a very, very personal thing. You have to work on yourself. Maybe you can do it in 3 months, but it also depends upon your lifestyle, your availability, the time that you have on hand. How much are you ready to invest into it, and what all steps are you taking? So there are, I think, n number of things that kind of cater to the environment when you're trying to learn a language. So according to me, there are a lot of things that go into learning a language. What are your thoughts on this?
completely see eye to eye. And even like you said, 6 or 12 months, but people, there are on a numerous classes who will claim that learn English in 3 months. So I never subscribe to that idea. Now I often tell to people, students, that if you come to my class, I won't teach you English in 3 months. You have to be with me for a longer period of time, because to learn English in 3 months, it's a completely preposterous thing. Never ever, go with that idea, with that notion. So yeah, I tell them honestly, and I make no bones about it. And like you said, a lot of people are under the impression that merely by speaking also they can master this language. But I feel like first you have to acquire the knowledge. You have to, go through the pages of books. Grammar can be boring at times, but willingly or unwillingly, you have to go through it, and then you can execute it when it comes to speaking. If you keep on
That's
speaking without learning anything, it's going to be futile. So
that's actually very true. That's
yeah,
absolutely true.
yeah, so yeah. And I see that you are making notes, I guess. Are you making notes?
Because sometimes when you have a conversation with somebody, you realize so many things. But because you are also an educator who deals with all of this, and when two educators share their ideas, you learn little
Mm.
little things, or
Yeah,
little tricks that you might explore. Oh, I can also do this. So I think
yeah,
it helps
nice.
so many other people, because that is your goal as an educator. So why not
Yeah,
share those ideas and enlighten people together? Because that is something so noble, and you feel so satisfied, when a student shows progress, or they've achieved something in life. That kind of feeling, I don't think any other profession can give you.
definitely,
So I
definitely.
understand
Yeah,
it's kind of very pure. So
definitely. Oh, nice. Yeah,
that is there.
yeah, nice.
Indeed.
And will you be still working for the entire day, or will you be taking some leave?
No, so I just will take certain sessions and rest my professional life, the one that I have. I
Hmm.
have certain work related to that, so I'll be kind of paying a little more attention to that.
Oh, got it.
Yes.
But it's not Sunday for you, I
It's usually not Sunday, especially if you have your own practice and if
guess.
you have your own work. So you don't realize what day it is. You just kind
Yeah.
of tap out according to your timings and your needs. And I don't have anything specific planned for Sunday. So I thought I'd better invest in it so that if any day I need to take an off next weekend or something, I have my work sorted out. So I just work according to that theory.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Great. And as you are into advocate, I'm not sure whether I asked you this question last time or not, but if you had to make a rule of a law of yours, and the entire nation has to follow it, what kind of law would you like to implement?
Oh, that's an interesting question. See, there are a lot of areas because being a lawyer, you deal with so many cases and you feel, okay, I need some improvement here, there, everywhere. So that is a very, very tricky question, I'd say. But at the end of it all, I'd say that, depending on which area do you want to make a law in, like if I say, I'll give you categories and areas, all right. If I say on the lines of matrimonial laws, if I had to make one thing compulsory for people, I would still say communication is very important. So communicating, I would make communicating compulsory.
Okay. Matrimonial, what did you say?
In terms of matrimonial law, before,
Okay. Got
somebody
it.
decides to get married or even if they decide to part ways, the very fact that sometimes communication actually helps in terms of deciding whether you want to go for this or whether you don't want to go for this. If
Mhm.
I was to make something compulsory to prevent either wrong marriage or, separation, so I would still suggest communication. And if
Okay.
I was to talk in terms of students or college based laws or anything, I would still make sure that they get basic education or at least skill based education so that they are able to get jobs. Because I also have gone through so many cases where kids from rural areas are very well educated, but just because they are not aware or because of lack of opportunity, they end up being unemployed, and it's an utter waste of resources for the country where the country can absolutely uplift itself. So I feel that, educating them about this, number one, and number two, letting them know what opportunities and what rights they have is equally important, because sometimes people from those areas, they feel that okay, education is a must, I just need to focus on this and then I will get a job. But they don't realize they have to apply and they have to open up so many opportunities, and then there are so many versions of that, and it is obviously very competitive out there, especially if I talk about corporate. I'd say there's cutthroat competition which with each better than the other,
Yeah.
and if you don't perform, you're absolutely a replaceable asset, no matter how irreplaceable you were at some point of time in the given company. So that fear is always lingering. So how do they kind of work on themselves? How do they keep getting certifications to kind of keep themselves being irreplaceable? So these basic things, or I would say a law where basic life skills are taught in school. You are taught about finances. You are taught about how to manage or how to do your taxes. These
Mhm.
basic things which are not taught in school or at
Sure.
any level or skill based, that you have to live. If you are to live alone at one given point of time, how do you run a house with having
Mhm.
a job? How do you do all of this? These things are not taught. Some people just assume because you live in a house with your families or your guardians that you are supposed to just see and learn. Nobody
Yeah.
is going to come and tell you how to do your taxes. Nobody will tell you, okay, if you can't do it, you have to go to a CA. But what if you don't earn that much that you can afford a CA? How do you do? What is the process? I mean, everything has to be kept in mind if a person is starting off young. You
Yeah.
have to focus on that as well. What if they're all alone? They were never taught about it. What if their families could not, reach that level? How, if they've reached that level, how are you supposed to guide them? What forms to use? Or, all right, how do they make good investments which have low risks? How do they do that? How do they invest their money? How do they kind of divide their money into expenditure and savings and investments for future purposes? Because they don't know about this. They're like, okay, I'll give certain chunk to my parents, I'll do this. What about yourselves? If you're saving, if you're just keeping in the bank account, but you end up being a victim of cyber fraud, what
Mhm.
about that? And you lose all your savings. So what backup do you have? There are so many things that you need to be aware about. I feel in today's generation, which is absolutely tech savvy and you depend on digitalized versions of everything, how do you manage that? How do you learn to be manual in an era where everything is so digitalized? So there are multiple laws for multiple fields, and every case will teach you something new. And every case tells you, oh, you could have thought about this as well. And you learn so much. You learn. We've dealt with cyber fraud cases, we've dealt with matrimonial cases, we've dealt with family law cases, we've dealt with property cases. So it kind of varies from case to case that what you learn and what you want to imply and apply in your life. So it's a wide range. I don't think I can make one law for it all. And India being a democratic country, I don't think one law can be applicable because everybody has their own ideology and need depending on region and availability of resources. So there's a lot that goes into it. So you can't make a unified law.
Oh, got it. Wow.
Yeah.
You spoke literally like a lawyer. Nice.
Thank you.
Great,
So
great. Wow.
absolutely. If you were to make a law, although I understand you're not exactly from a legal background, but from a civilian perspective, I would want to know if you were to make a law or you were to make a change
Hmm.
in any sphere as a human being, what would you do? What is that one thing you would want to change?
Look, when it comes to India, I guess a lot of rape cases happen on regular basis.
Yes.
And that's something that always, drives me nuts. So I want to give, heinous, this kind of crimes that are being done. Because I feel like somewhere the system is not strict enough with the culprits.
Mhm.
So I want to give them the kind of punishment that the other person would think thousands of times prior to committing this kind of thing. So my answer is a little bit straightforward. Give them, cut their dicks or anything, whatever is possible. Do that. Make them suffer so that this kind of cases will start, decreasing on like I would say.
Absolutely. And I feel like when we go across cases like so heinous in nature, and then you start comparing Indian laws with laws based in UAE. UAE
Yeah,
has a super strict policy. You go
definitely.
to any other country where at least the justice part of it is extremely swift. And one of the most famous landmark cases, the Nirbhaya case, which I think shook the entire country when such a heinous act occurred.
Hmm.
And I felt that the justice for the poor soul was so delayed that the
True.
judgment came somewhere around, I think, 2023 or 2020, somewhere in the early that part, and which was extremely sad.
Yeah,
Is what are you trying to prove to the family of the victim?
yeah,
She did
definitely.
not survive this. She wanted to live. The justice was not served then and there. The
Hmm.
law, although there, with entire evidence in custody, there was nothing to test. Even if one of them was a minor, he was a part of the crime. He could have been treated according to the laws of the minor, and even if when he was a major, the punishment could have changed depending on the laws and the situations. But why to prolong it? When you have
Definitely.
a victim, when you have a murder victim, or when you have something so heinous, you say that the law is absolutely strict. It's written in a manner which is absolutely strict. Then why
Hmm.
not follow it was the question.
Yeah, definitely.
I understand there's a procedure for law. There are rights to the accused as well. But when everything points towards it because of the investigation and everything, I understand investigation might take a little more time.
Yeah.
But number of years, couple of months, understandable to gather evidence and everything because it was such a heinous act with so many people involved. But how do you portray the fact that it took years to get justice? And
Definitely.
how was anybody happy except for the laws being changed? And
Hmm.
one thing that troubles me the most is the law changes when there is something that shakes the country. Why
Sure.
not make stricter laws before anything happens to prevent it from happening?
Hmm.
That is one
Definitely.
of the questions that kind of, tickles my brain as to why not is
Yeah.
the so
True.
again.
True. Yeah, that thing is always, and after that, a lot of cases happen.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah, like victims, sorry, culprits didn't even think about that case or and the biggest punishment that we give is life imprisonment or I guess, what do you call it? Hanging.
yeah.
Uh,
Death by hanging.
Yeah. So
And
I,
again,
I
that's also very rare in cases with the
yeah,
bails and anticipatory bails and all of this coming into play. So that is very rarely that you hear in the country that, oh, somebody got that, unless it was Kasab. The last we've heard about that, that too only terrorist act where he was given his rights in a country like ours. And assume it was the other way around in another country. I don't
yeah,
think that would
true.
have been the case.
And I guess we spent
One
crores
had
and
so much
crores on
comfort
him.
as
You
a
know?
terrorist who was in custody,
Yeah. And we
right?
spent crores of rupees on him, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So why, TK, I understand that, investigation, knowing about it, but when you have video evidence of him slaughtering, manslaughter,
Yeah.
terrorism, and all of this was planning and it was all admitted by him, then why do you want to delay the process? All right, he was given the rights in the country with an advocate and a representative and everything, but still there was so much that goes under it all that you
Mhm.
cannot kind of, you know, justify that heinous act with so many months which were granted.
Definitely.
There are
Yeah.
questions there are severe questions of law that you will, as a civilian, as somebody who's not read law, but you will still kind of, question anybody on those lines as to why. So imagine a lawyer who knows law and is conflicted between the two. So it's
Mm.
anyways very difficult realizing as to you are there to provide justice, but you still can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So it's
True.
more troublesome for the other person to be aware and not do anything. So it's
Definitely.
kind of problematic at times as well.
And being civilians, like who are not aware of, like being civilians in general, I guess most of the people, they don't believe in the justice system. You know, I feel, I personally, I don't believe that something happens, I would get the justice immediately. I would feel like, you know, I would rather stay away from it because it's gonna take hell of a time to get justice and all. So that's how the mindset of people are. Like I guess most of the people think that way. They would rather stay away from law and courts, even if
That is
something bad.
actually true. That is why most of the rape cases don't get registered. Because
Yeah,
number one, they have a mindset, oh, what will happen to our image in the society, number one.
yeah,
Number two, we will not get justice and we will be the only ones who kind of, are exploited in terms of, oh, this happened to your daughter, this happened to so and so, oh, this happened to them. Oh my God, that's a shame. So why do we have that mindset, number one? Why don't we? So the victim has a victim mentality. They get victimized and traumatized by the society rather than the society supporting them to come forward and take proper actions. It's the other way around, which is shocking. It is absolutely shocking. And not just here, and people are so scared of advocates and the entire process of law. Sometimes, we have to advocate the very idea that we're also here to protect you. And we are not just about fighting cases. There is so much more. We can look
mm,
into for legal opinions before you enter into contracts. There is documentation. There is so much more that we can do to protect you from so many things. But the very
yeah,
idea is that they have this, a biased opinion that we only can argue in courts. And until they realize and they start having a conversation, oh, you guys also do this, you guys also do that. There is endless opportunity in the field of law now. But yes, I
yeah,
would also say that people do have this mind block because initially law was very restricted to courts. Now that the requirement for legal teams here, their legal consultancy, freelancing, there is so much more that, kind of has stepped into every field. Law is primarily everywhere. So that is
yeah,
how people have started to accept it. But yet nobody, if you talk to anybody, if they're willing to go to court, but they still don't believe that the justice will be as swift as you thought, and they would avoid going to court
yeah,
less extremely necessary, or it is about them who are the victims. Oh, I my contract got breached and now I want to move to court. Unless it's about matters like that, they are willing to go to court, which is very rare. So yes, and again,
true.
the justice system, it's actually not the justice system's fault. There are so many pending cases that you go, you file, and then you get a date 3 months apart, then you get a date 6 months apart because the pendency and other cases taking priority. It's not anybody's fault. It's just that the procedural part initially was so slow, and now there is this thing that it has to be swift. So now they are trying to cover up the gap. But again, when the new cases are also piling up with the old cases that are outgoing, so obviously it is confusing. You can't blame anybody, but you can also crib about it. So it's that
Mm,
kind of a situation.
makes sense. And on a lighter note, if I ask you, like, as you are a lawyer, advocate. I want to know that when you watch films where Sunny Deol is there and he's like yelling in the court, breaking the the stand and all. How do you feel about it?
All right, that is extremely fictional because every court setup, you have a very different idea of what a courtroom is. And suddenly, if you ever go to a district court or you go to the high court in your area, Supreme Court is obviously we only have one Supreme Court, but you realize, okay, it's not like that. So initially, when we were, way back when we were graduates, so we were interning with certain senior advocates and everybody, we thought, oh, this is what a courtroom will look like. And when once we met, it was a cultural shock for me to realize, okay, that's the judge, and these two are just standing there and arguing and talking about it with the judge as if it's so casual. And I
Yeah,
started interning with criminal law initially, and I was like, they're just talking. The cross examination is this basic. And it was a cultural shock, but then you get an idea. Okay, what you watch in movies and series, especially Suits, a lot of interns and
yeah,
associates that come to me, especially the fresh ones, they realize it's not like Suits. We don't work like that. We don't
yeah,
look good 24/7, and we don't just chill and close contracts
yeah,
and deals just like that. There's a lot of pressure from the clients. I mean, you actually have to make something happen because a client has certain needs, then the other opposing party is not ready to do that. How do you deal with it? How do you tackle law? How do you put in the effort? There are so many factors to it that sometimes people fail to realize being an advocate. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes. And obviously, it's nothing like the movies. You can't break a stand or you do anything because you will be held in the contempt of court. And, if you watch movies where the advocate is, arguing with the bench. But even when you see in reality, if you go to the high court, even if a senior advocate or an advocate is arguing, he'll be very respectfully putting his point forward. He would not want to offend the judge. The things that are shown in movies, okay, I don't care, this can happen, that can happen, that is all hypothetical. And if anybody who's watching is a potential law student or anything, I would recommend not trying any of this at your own risk. So all of these things can be very, very fatal for your career. But yes, it has the trust of a judge also has to be earned. But I've also seen super senior advocates who have at least 30, 40 years of experience and still getting scolded by the bench because of something they might not have followed in the procedure. So, irrespective of your reputation and years of hard work, you cannot skip on following the procedure of law. It is still same for everybody. There are no excuses for not doing something. Whether you've just started practicing or you've been in 30, 40 years of practice, you still have to follow that. So there is no approach ever in the field of law which lets you be lackadaisical or lazy about the whole situation. So you can't really step back. So
wow,
that's how things happen in the real world.
wow. All right. I guess let's call it a day. I'm gonna
That's
digest all these things. It
uh,
was really educational, inspiring, and also like thought provoking. So thank you for.
likewise. I learned a lot of things from you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll catch up soon. Take care.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you. Bye bye.